Caves are much older than myth and darker than memory. Long before the first temple was built or a word was etched into stone, humans crawled into the earth's hollowed lungs to hide, to survive, and sometimes to worship. These places weren't just shelter, they were thresholds between worlds, sacred, terrifying, alive with things we couldn't explain, and still can't. Some caves whisper with ancient rituals, others scream with secrets that refuse to stay buried. From vanished children and skeletal remains to cursed passages and death-bringing air, here are 15 unexplained cave mysteries, each one soaked in shadow and carved by something deeper than time. Number 15. The Hannibal Trio. The town was quiet when they disappeared. It was 1967 in Hannibal, Missouri, a place already etched in memory thanks to Mark Twain's tales. Beneath it, though, stretched a maze of caves, limestone passages, some mapped, most not. Brothers Joey and Billy Hogue and their pal Craig Dowell were last seen near one such cave mouth, newly exposed by construction work. They slipped inside. They never came back out. No cries, no echo, not even a footprint. Volunteers and cave experts from across the country descended with lights and maps. Murphy's cave was picked apart inch by inch, but nothing surfaced. No scraps, no collapsed tunnels. It was as if the cave had exhaled and erased them. Some blamed a hidden cave-in, which quickly covered up. Others pointed to serial killer John Wayne Gacy, who was passing through the state at the time. Maybe it wasn't the cave that claimed them. Maybe something waited just beyond it. Decades passed. A new entrance was found. Still, the boys remained somewhere, buried or hidden, never found. Number 14. The Chasm of Tree Tapor. He vanished in 1945. For 73 years, his daughter searched every corner of Asturias, refusing to accept silence. Eloy Campo Perez, former mayor of Suarias, was said to have disappeared during the Francoist purges. But in 2018, explorers dropped into Tree Tapor, a deep mountain chasm, and found bones where no one was meant to rest. DNA confirmed it, Eloy. A bullet to the neck. A shell casing was still near the rim. Executed, then discarded like garbage. But he wasn't alone. When they returned to recover him, they found someone else. Smaller bones. Finer. A girl. Pale, likely coastal. 12 or 13. Died in the 1950s. No record. No name. Her skeleton was intact. Skull fractured, but nothing broken from a fall. She hadn't dropped into the abyss. She'd been placed, two strangers years apart, sharing a grave no one meant to be a grave. Authorities closed the case. She was buried beside him. And in that quiet hole beneath the earth, two stories ended, or maybe began again, in questions that refused to die. Number 13. Goffsit's Cave. In the heart of Somerset's scenic countryside, Goff's Cave quietly hides one of Britain's darkest prehistoric secrets. Today, it's used for aging cheddar cheese, and tourists shuffle through its dripping chambers with barely a glance at the bones beneath their feet. But in 1903, archaeologists discovered a human skeleton dating back to roughly 7,150 BC, known as Cheddar Man. He wasn't alone. At least 7 others were found nearby, and their remains told a horrifying story. Cut marks and smashed bones suggested they weren't just killed, they were eaten. Human skulls had been turned into drinking cups, their edges smoothed with methodical precision. These weren't desperate acts of starvation. The butchery was ritualistic, cold, and deliberate. Cannibalism wasn't just about survival, it may have held spiritual meaning. Goff's Cave wasn't a sanctuary. It was a slaughterhouse turned sacred, a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead collapsed in the dim firelight. And now people eat cheese there. Number 12. The Coffins of Arthur Sit's Seat. They weren't buried, they were hidden. In June of 1836, 3 boys climbing Arthur's Seat stumbled across something wedged into a rock hollow, 17 tiny coffins, each no longer than a man's hand. Inside each one, a carved wooden figure lay dressed in fragile cloth, eyes painted shut or staring blankly ahead. They weren't toys. They weren't meant for children. They were too deliberate, too still. Some said they were sailors, symbolic burials for the drowned. Others whispered of witchcraft, protection spells, and effigies. But the number stood out most. 17 coffins, 17 victims of Burke and Hare, the infamous resurrectionists who murdered for medical cadavers. Was this penance, mockery, or remembrance? Whoever made them added them in layers, older ones rotting, newer ones barely worn. Someone was still visiting. Today, only 8 survive, displayed in Edinburgh's National Museum. The rest, gone. The maker never stepped forward. The reason behind them died with time. And the tiny coffins, once buried in silence, now murmur their own strange eulogy from behind glass. Number 11. Ketum Cave. Well, not all killers stalk in daylight. Ketum Cave waits until the silence settles, until salt-hungry elephants retreat and the dust starts to rise. For centuries it was a mineral haven carved by tusks, visited nightly by entire herds. But in 1980 it became something else. French naturalist Charles Monet entered healthily and died soon after in a Nairobi hospital, his organs dissolving from the inside. Then a Danish boy, same cave, same ending. The culprit, Marburg virus. Closely related to Ebola. No cure, no forgiveness. Scientists descended in hazmat suits, scraping walls, swabbing guano, studying bats. They found nothing conclusive. Egyptian fruit bats became the suspects, but no one had been bitten. The theory shifted. It wasn't blood, it was breath. Particles floating in the air, invisible death, inhaled by explorers thinking they were just taking in cave air. Despite everything, Ketum Cave remains open. Salt still draws the animals, but for humans, the cave doesn't need a weapon. It just waits for you to breathe. Number 10. The Boy from the Wolf Cave. He didn't speak, not even when they dragged him into the light. In 1867, hunters entering a wolf den near Bull Shar expected teeth, fur, and wildness. They weren't wrong, but the boy they found among the wolves wasn't lost. He belonged. Emaciated, silent, and crawling on all fours, he resisted every human touch. They named him Dina Sanishar. It was the first human thing he was ever given. At the orphanage, he refused cooked food. Preferred raw meat, slept curled on the floor, howled through the night. Language never took root. His voice remained trapped in growls and grunts. Other feral children arrived, but none adjusted. Dina, though, stayed, grew older, never quite changed. He wore clothes, learned to smoke, not much more. He died at 34 from tuberculosis, having spent over 2 decades on the edge of humanity. Some say his story inspired the Jungle Book, but Dina's life was no fable. Just a boy raised by wolves, placed among men, and never truly claimed by either world. All right, guys, now let's talk about Number 9. Bell Witch Cave. Not far from the town of Adams, Tennessee, there's a cave that doesn't need theatrics or jump scares to unnerve you. It carries its own legacy of dread. In the early 1800s, the Bell family experienced something so violent and persistent that it's been etched into American folklore as the Bell Witch haunting. It wasn't a whisper in the dark. It slapped, screamed, scratched, and tormented the family until their patriarch John Bell was allegedly poisoned by the entity. When the family left, the activity stopped, but the story didn't. Locals say the spirit returned to a nearby cave, a place now known simply as the Bell Witch Cave. Tourists come and go. Some report strange sounds, some don't, but the land still holds an edge, like something buried just beneath the surface isn't quite done. The cave doesn't roar. It waits, and whatever it is, it's not playing. No one owns the silence there. It belongs to her and only her. Number 8. Krubera Cave. Krubera Cave doesn't feel like part of Earth. Dropping over 7,200 feet into the limestone heart of the Arabica Massif, it's not just deep, it's endless in spirit. The deeper you go, the more the planet forgets about you. At its furthest known point, You're wrapped in darkness so complete that it eats the idea of direction. Explorers who've gone down speak less of discovery and more of survival. The cold, the silence, the feeling of being watched, it doesn't feel like geology. It feels like being digested. In those unlit corridors, scientists have found creatures that live nowhere else, blind, translucent, and utterly alien. Spiders, centipedes, and tiny crustaceans evolved to live without light, without heat, without anything but pressure and time. And beyond that, nothing. The floor hasn't been reached. No one's sure it ever will be. Krubera doesn't just swallow ropes and maps, it swallows understanding. And at a certain depth, the human mind stops asking what's down there, it just hopes it never finds out. And it's for the best. Number 7. Kabayan Mummy Burial Caves. High in the mountains of northern Luzon, ancient chambers hide the kind of silence that doesn't feel natural. The Kabayan caves are stacked with the fire mummies, preserved bodies curled inside pinewood coffins, their skin darkened by smoke and time. These weren't haphazard burials, these were rituals. The mummification process was slow and sacred. Dying elders drank salt water and then smoked over a fire, sometimes for months until their flesh was cured. Every inch of it was about honor, about returning the body to the land with dignity. Then came outsiders. Logging crews stumbled upon the burial sites, and curiosity quickly gave way to greed. Skulls vanished. Bones were stolen. Some mummies ended up in private collections, others on display. The desecration was met with strange stories, accidents, illness, eerie sightings near the caves. Maybe curses are superstition, but the air inside these tombs isn't just thin, it feels disturbed. Kabayan isn't just a graveyard, it's a broken promise, and breaking promises to the dead always has a cost. Number 6. Cave of the Winds. Just outside Manitou Springs, the Cave of the Winds doesn't pretend to be ancient or forgotten. It's a family-friendly destination with light shows, a zip line, and the pterodactyl ride that launches people over a canyon. But underneath the marketing, the cave tells a very different story. Paranormal teams who've set up shop here didn't just get flickering EMF meters, they got growls from nowhere, disembodied voices, cold blasts that cut through stone. Visitors have reported having their clothes tugged, hearing whispers they couldn't locate, or spotting orbs darting through the dark like fireflies in reverse. Tour guides pass on tales of miners, lost explorers, and shadowy figures seen ducking behind stalagmites, but the source is never clear. One thing everyone agrees on, it's not quiet down there. The deeper you go, the louder the silence grows, until it starts pushing back. The cave doesn't care about schedules or ticket stubs. Whatever lives there doesn't care if you believe in ghosts, it just wants you to listen. Number 5. Hellfire Caves. Sir Francis Dashwood had the wealth, the land, and the peculiar taste to match. In the mid-1700s, he carved deep into the chalky hills of West Wycombe, not for mining, but for mischief. The result was the Hellfire Caves, a shadow-laced network of winding passages that once echoed with the footsteps of his secretive Hellfire Club. What exactly happened down there? No one ever recorded it clearly, but the rumors never left. Rituals, masked gatherings, whispered invocations, and symbols scrawled into the walls that still make visitors uneasy. Locals speak of unnatural echoes, cold spots, and the strange sense of being watched by something old. Some believe Dashwood's club stirred up more than scandal. Whether it was theatrical bravado or something genuinely sinister, those echoes haven't faded. And the deeper you go, the more the walls seem to breathe with secrets. You don't walk alone in Hellfire. You walk with everything that was left behind. Number 4. Devil Set's Hole. Long before settlers named it, the Seneca people already avoided Devil's Hole. They said something evil lived there. A spirit that took the form of a massive serpent dwelling deep in the blackness of the cave. The warnings were clear. Enter, and you either go mad or disappear. French explorers ignored the warnings. One went in and came out raving. Others turned on each other. The madness grew worse in 1763. When Seneca warriors ambushed a British supply convoy near the site, 81 soldiers died. Some were dragged screaming into the gorge. What started as a legend became tethered to blood. Since then, strange events have continued: sudden rock slides, hikers going missing, and sightings of shadowy figures near the opening. People still climb down to the ledge, peer into the abyss, and swear they feel something staring back. Devil's Hole doesn't just look like a wound in the earth. It behaves like one. Angry, deep, still bleeding. Number 3. Mammoth Cave. Mammoth Cave stretches like a buried cathedral beneath Kentucky's surface, its tunnels winding for over 400 miles, longer than any known cave system on Earth. Native Americans used it for centuries, mining minerals and burying their dead in its silent chambers. And then they stopped. Without war, without famine, without explanation. They sealed their burials and never returned. Modern explorers have uncovered mummified remains, sacred artifacts, and signs of extensive occupation. But the reasons for abandonment remain buried just as deep. Stories from cavers, those who spend hours in complete darkness, mention disorientation, overwhelming dread, and sounds that echo from nowhere. Park rangers have logged strange incidents, sudden sicknesses, and unexplained footsteps in isolated chambers. Something about this place unsettles even the rational. Mammoth Cave doesn't roar, it breathes slowly, like something sleeping with one eye open. Not every path should be followed, and not every silence is empty. The cave isn't haunted in the traditional sense. It just never learned how to forget. Number 2. Cave of Sibyl. Deep beneath Cumae near Naples lies a passage carved with care, long, trapezoidal, and unsettlingly symmetrical. This is the Cave of the Sibyl, and once you're inside, it doesn't feel like a ruin. It feels like it's still in use. The Sibyl wasn't a myth. She was a real priestess of Apollo, known for her maddeningly cryptic prophecies. People came from across the Roman Empire just to hear her riddles, hoping to change their fates. But there was always a catch. Her guidance was rarely kind, and the cave became more than a shrine. It became a threshold. The Sibyl was said to guide souls into the underworld, and the passage she used was this very tunnel. Modern visitors speak of temperature drops, strange whispers, and an inexplicable weight in the air. Tourists walk in with cameras and sneakers, but something about the geometry shifts your balance like the walls are closing in. You don't just walk into this place, you pass through it, and not all of you return. Number 1. Cave of the Python God. In the bone-dry hills of Botswana, there's a cave so old it may contain humanity's first whispers of God. Rhino Cave, buried within the Tzetelo Hills, holds a 20-foot stone shaped like a python's head, etched with deliberate cuts that resemble scales. Around it, archaeologists found hundreds of carved tools and fragments of red ochre, signs of symbolic thinking that predate even the oldest known cave rituals. This site may have hosted ceremonies 70,000 years ago, long before the migration of modern humans out of Africa. The Sand People, native to the region, still speak of the python as a sacred figure, a bringer of water and life. The scratch marks on the serpent-shaped rock weren't idle. They were ritual acts. Worship wasn't born in temples or under steeples. It began in the dark, under stone ceilings and the gaze of rock-carved gods. Rhino Cave isn't just old. It may be the first place where humans looked into the void and gave it meaning. If you've enjoyed watching this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon.